Again, if Google's giving you tools on how to optimize your website, how to understand what is and isn't working with your website, and what pages are or are not in their index, use these tools. Welcome back to Local SEO Tactics. This week we're going to be talking about Google Search Console. If you're not already using this, you're going to want to pay attention to this episode, take some notes, and get this set up. It's completely free, put out by Google, and this allows you to submit your site to Google and keep track of what's happening. This is going to let you get reports on how often your website is being shown in Google results. This is going to show you how many clicks you're getting from those Google results and what your average positioning is. It'll also show you how many of your pages are actually accepted to Google and if there's any errors, problems with your website that's preventing it from being found in Google. So if you care about showing up in Google, you care about your rankings, and you care about that online exposure, which we all do, stay tuned, take some notes, and get this set up for your business.
Hi, everyone. This is Bob Brennan, and I want to talk to you about a product and a service we have coming out here called Review Leads. And this is a great product. Unless you're living in a cave and never bought anything off of Amazon, if you're like Jesse and I, when I look at a product on Amazon, I look at a couple things. One, I look at the price. Two, I look at the reviews. And then three, I look at the quantity of sales, so to speak. Yep. And I take the three pieces, and I make my decision from there what I'm going to do. Well, for us as local businesses, people are doing that with our reviews as well. So if you're fortunate enough to come up in the map pack and your competition's up there, you've got to have these reviews. So I mean, here's a good example. You can see these landscapers here. Yep. One guy has 76 reviews, all 5-star. The next person down has no reviews. And then the third person is 14 reviews and 3.5 stars.
Yeah. Who would you pick, right?
Who'd you pick? So this is a product that will help get those reviews, not only for Google, but for Yelp, Facebook, Angie's List.
Anywhere you can get reviews.
Yeah. And if you have a proprietary association, let's say, that leaves reviews, we can tap that into that as well.
And all that helps your SEO, by the way, too.
Right.
Not just on the front side for making a decision compared to other people.
Right.
Getting reviews across all platforms helps your organic SEO on your website. So
yeah, and we can tie into these reviews to show up on your site. Is that right?
Yep.
If you get a chance, go check it out. It's intrix.com/review lead. And there's a great audit tool on there that you can check out the information. There's a blue button. You click on it. You fill in your information, and we'll do a audit of all your reviews and give you more information.
So we'll give you a report card, what your current score is, where you're missing opportunities to get more leads, and how you stack up against the competition. It's kind of eye-opening. So take a minute, intrix.com/review lead. You see, I got it up on screen here. Just click the blue button, send us your information. We'll get you back that report and take it from there. All right, and with that quick plug, we'll jump right into the episode, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Hey everyone, Jesse Dolan, Bob Brennan back with you for Local SEO Tactics. And we're coming at you this week, going to get a little bit more technical. The last few weeks we've talked about some tactics and went through some tools, getting into some strategies, handling phone calls, and a little bit outside the SEO territory. Today we're going to dive headfirst right back into a product everybody should be using. If you have a website, if you're trying to manage your SEO and you're doing anything with Google, which you should be if you're doing anything with SEO, you're going to want to use this. It's called Google Search Console. Anybody who's kind of been in the marketing and digital world for a while, it used to be called Google Webmaster Tools. It's now called Google Search Console, and it's completely free and definitely a product that you got to get signed up with to manage your SEO and see what's happening. We're going to take a tour of it, kind of walk through some of the most important aspects and areas that you're going to be using and checking out with it. But first, just kind of a quick overview for what the heck is it and why do you need it. So basically, when you make a website, you just make it. Yeah, just because you publish it and it's live and we can visit it doesn't mean it's automatically going to get taken up by Google and be exposed for the whole world to see. So what Google Search Console is it's kind of a communication console between you and Google to say, here's my website, or websites. You can have multiple websites. This is where you would have this is where you'd basically have a dashboard for what are all your websites, what are all your properties. Have you submitted them to Google? What's the current status in Google? We'll walk through and show you there's lots of cool things. Even what kind of visibility are you getting in Google? Are they showing your pages? What pages are they showing? And all kinds of cool stuff, completely free. You do have to verify that the websites that you're putting in there, that you own them. You can't just plug any old website in there. So there's going to be a little bit of technical how-to to get this hooked up, so you can get this, but it's going to be well worth the effort. Again, if you have a website, you definitely got to be using this. It's going to give you insight that you're not going to get anywhere else. So, so with that, let's just talk about how to set up your account.
Quick question before we get in. How frequently are you looking at this tool?
Yeah.
And then can you give it advice in terms of not overusing the tool? So, I mean, if you're driving a car, you don't want to be staring at your speedometer going, wow. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think weekly for sure. At least when you're starting out, it kind of depends on what you're doing with your website. If you're actively making some changes and you're adding pages, adding media, different content, and you're wanting to see what's happening with it, then definitely weekly. You could go more frequently, but there's a bit of a lag. This is not necessarily like a real-time tool. Okay. There's some aspects of it that may be more real-time than others, but in general, I would say probably weekly. And if your website is kind of plateaued for the amount of content you're putting on there or what you do with it, or you just don't put a lot of stuff on there each week, then definitely at least monthly. I wouldn't go any less than monthly. If you're going farther than that, you're kind of ignoring it. Google's rolling out algorithm updates kind of on a monthly basis here. Some are much larger than others. And at the very least, you're going to want to be aware of what's happening there. So if you catch something on, the different news subscriptions you might have, or Twitter, or whoever you're following, for what kind of updates are happening in the SEO world, if you catch wind of something, or in Facebook or whatever, go here to see if it's impacting your website. It's something that you can't overuse, like in a negative way of, unless you are watching it driving your car and you crash, but there's no negative impact as it relates to your website and things like that. More of just a waste of time.
Sure. Okay.
But if you're super curious, or if you have a really big website and you really are adding a ton of pages and making a lot of changes, then checking it daily sure as heck ain't going to hurt you. But I guess a rule of thumb, not to be too long on the answer, is if you start checking it daily and there's nothing changing, stop checking it daily and just kind of keep backing out. On. So yeah. What was the other part of your question?
Just that overuse piece in terms of, again, time waste.
Yeah.
A lot of times we have tools and we get excited about a tool, right? And we're just staring at it and
sucked into using it.
Yeah, and you're just like, okay, it's not really productive to do that. But it is a critical tool, just like your speedometer or anything else. You just it tells you the health of your site. But then more importantly, like you were saying, it isn't 100% accurate. It has some lag time to it.
Yeah, there's some lag time, and even with that, it's kind of known in the community. There's certain aspects of it. I wouldn't take this as gospel. This is a great, dashboard, like let's say for your car, for a certain piece of information, your fuel tank in your car, right? So you have, basically it's divided up into quarters of your tank. It doesn't get more precise than that because you don't need to know how many ounces of gasoline you have left. Kind of similar here. There are some things we're going to get into. It shows you what pages, what your average page rank is, or maybe the exposure it's getting. Don't take those numbers to the bank as an absolute stat. There's other tools we'll get into in other episodes, like Google Analytics, which is another free tool. You can go check that out. This is kind of your 20,000 foot view for certain stats, but then other pieces of information for, this is where Google's going to communicate to you maybe some negative things, right? If they call them manual actions. If there's some things you have to do to your website that need to be corrected and fixed, something like that is going to be extremely explicit and specific. You're going to want to pay attention to that. But as you get into more of the stats for what kind of traffic exposure or page ranking you're getting, that you're going to want to take as kind of more of a general guideline than an absolute stat. So hopefully that answers that. So where we're going to want to go to get this is, again, a free account. And just like your Google My Business page, we talked before about setting up with that, or Google AdWords if you're going to use the keyword research tool, same thing. If you have an account with Google, whether it be Gmail or your private email, you're going to log in with that same account here. So where you're going to want to go is google.com/webmasters, and there's going to be a green button for Google Search Console. Click on that, and you can either log in there if you've already set it up before. If in the context of what we're talking here, you're going to set it up for the first time, there's going to be a link that says set up a new account. Now at this point, your very next step is going to be to add your property. It's important to note if your website is a secure website with the SSL security, so it's going to be a HTTPS website, that's how you're going to want to enter it in, because whatever you enter in here, this is what you're going to be reporting on. Enter that into your property, and now you're going to have to verify your website. So they're going to present you with a couple options on how to do that. The easiest one that we prefer, because we use WordPress for most of our websites, is to apply an HTML tag. And you're going to have, I think it's 3 different options with radio buttons for you to select which version are you going to use to verify your website. You can also use your Google Analytics account. If you already have one of those with the Google Analytics code installed in your website, you can just use that to verify. Yep. They'll trust your authority on that. Or you can upload an HTML file to your website as well. But again, if you're using WordPress, the easiest is to just go ahead and grab that verification code, put it into your website, come back to Google Search Console, click the button that says verify. They on all of these options, actually, they go out and check your website afterwards and make sure that that code or that page or that element was installed on your website, which then proves you're the owner, because they gave you this code, you put it on your website, you said verify, now they're checking it, and that's how they close the loop to make sure you're not hijacking somebody else's website or eavesdropping on them. So a couple hoops to jump through there to get set up, but again, it's completely free, and this is information that you definitely need to be having. So go through those steps. If you're having any trouble, reach out to us, we can help you out. So once you verify your website, the very next thing that you're going to want to do is enter in your sitemap. You're going to want to go over to the right. You're going to see those 3 options. Click on the one that says Sitemaps. And up in the top right corner, you're going to see a big red button that says Add/Test Sitemap. Click on that, and you can enter in your sitemap here. You can see, just paste in that sitemap extension. It's usually going to be something like sitemap.xml or some other similar format. Paste it in there and click Submit. And from there, what you just did is you just provided to Google, here's all the pages on my website. So you've hooked into the Search Console. You've proved that it's your website, and now you're giving them your sitemap, where your sitemap is listed. So if you don't know what a sitemap is, the next podcast episode, we're going to be diving deep into that. Yep. Again, it's kind of technical, but that's definitely something you're going to want to have enabled on your website. That's going to be basically the index of all your pages for Google. That's how they're going to know what are all the pages on the site, what should be crawling, what should be looking for. So you got to submit that to Google. Otherwise, you're just kind of at their mercy for finding your pages, and you don't want to do that. You want to tell them, here's all my pages on my website. Please take them and put them into your search results. If you don't submit your sitemap, you're really not taking that last step. So after you enter in your sitemap, it's going to take a couple days before your information really sinks into Google. So don't be sitting there, waiting to see all of a sudden all these stats pop up. If you haven't already submitted all this to Google, they're not tracking this. They don't know they should be tracking this. Now, if you get lucky, it's going to pop a little bit quicker, but I would expect maybe a day or 2. So check back and check it out. And then after that, you're going to have all these stats going forward. So now we're going to dive into what those stats areas are going to be, which are the important ones, and definitely challenge you to explore this entire Search Console once you get it up and running. Everything on there is information that's between you and Google. So you're going to want to be very intimate with all of it, but we're going to hit on kind of the top level ones just to make sure everybody knows what you should be checking out. Over on the left-hand side, you're going to see kind of the main areas that Google has outlined. You're going to want to go down to the crawl section. And definitely, again, one of the first things you want to do here is do this fetch as Google, which basically makes Google go out, pulls your web page, whatever page you're going to input in here. It pulls it down into their index, and they look at it, and then they can spider your website from there. So you're kind of triggering it to say, not only here's my website and here's my sitemap, but go out and spider my website now. You're going to want to do this 2 times. One, you'll see there's a drop down here for desktop or mobile. You're going to want to do that once for each. So your website's going to come up just the default homepage. If you want to submit a specific page, go ahead and do that. I recommend everybody at least start with just your homepage. And your homepage, they're going to spider that and connect to your other pages from there. So you don't have to do every individual page.
Okay.
But if you had a subfolder on your website that maybe wasn't accessible by your homepage or kind of detached, that's where you're going to want to enter that in here and get that fetched as well. And again, do it for mobile and for desktop. So for here, you just click the button that says fetch. And then you're going to be presented. It'll be a little green check mark saying, okay, we fetched it. Then there's another button that says request indexing. And that's where you trigger them to spider and index your website. You're going to have to prove you're not a robot, of course, like always. And then you just do the same thing again for mobile. So do that once for mobile, once for desktop. And then after that, you've submitted to Google. You don't really have to do anything else to let Google know that your pages are here and your website is here. Now you just sit back and wait. There's a couple areas you can look at after this to see what's happening, what the trends are. In the same crawl area, there's a button that says Sitemaps. You're going to want to click on that. And this is going to tell you how many pages Google has found on your website. In this example here, you can see it's 113 pages have been submitted, and Google has accepted 80 of those into the index. This number can go up and down. Don't be afraid of that. There's changes that they make weekly, there's changes that they make monthly, if not weekly in some instances. So you can see some fluctuation. That's okay. I would say if you see a big downturn, number one, check, make sure what's happening with your website. This is definitely an indicator that even though you have 113 pages, if this dropped down to 5 pages indexed, what that means is now there's only 5 pages in the Google index. So there's only 5 pages that are going to get served up as results for any web search out there, right? You're going to want more pages. The more pages, the better in the index. It doesn't mean you want to spam the system. You don't want to create 800 pages and have a lot of duplicate content. Those won't get indexed, right? So we're not so much talking about here the more pages, the better in general. The more pages you have indexed, though, the better. Those are just more chances, more keywords, and more instances that you're in the Google search engine. So
is there a ratio that's acceptable or in this case there's 113 pages, 80 of which are indexed. So
yeah, this one definitely needs a little attention. A couple of weeks ago, Google came out with an algorithm update, which kind of is less is more.
Okay.
So this is one of the sites we're going to be attacking to pull off some of the content that has no value. But I would say 80% is kind of our rule of thumb, because not every page you're going to create is going to get indexed in Google. It's something you always should be monitoring. What pages am I creating? What pages aren't ranking at all? If they're not ranking, then there's some things you can try to maybe tweak the content or again, resubmit it to try to get it indexed. But if it's not ranking and it's not getting indexed, it's just dead weight on your website. You're going to pull that down. So that percentage isn't so much a reflection on what's Google doing. It's kind of your content quality. Is this page even relevant? Because if it's kind of like getting into the club, if they don't want you in there, they're going to say you're not in. And that's, in this case, again, 80 of the pages were accepted. So what is that? What's the math on there? 33 pages weren't accepted. Those 33 pages need to be analyzed for quality, if they're even relevant, and why they're not getting indexed. So there can be some legitimate reasons why we need to keep those pages, and they're not getting indexed. We're not going to get into those. There's pretty marginal stuff. Don't want to distract from the episode here.
Okay.
But as a rule, if you're shooting in that 80% range, I think you're going to be in pretty good shape. That's just my opinion. Everybody's kind of got their own recipe for that, though. In addition to web pages, you're also going to see another button here for images. Everybody's probably used Google image search. Same concept here. All the images that are on your website are getting submitted to Google along with your web pages, and this is going to show you how many of those images are into the Google index for images. So when you go to image search and you're searching for whatever you're calling your files, you're gonna see them there or not. Under the crawl area, there's a section called crawl errors. If Google encounters any kind of an error when they're trying to crawl, or spider your website, they're going to give you an alert here. It's something you're going to want to pay attention to. If they can't index a page, if they can't crawl a page, they can't index a page. So you're going to want to correct any actions there. They'll tell you what's going on. Another area that's definitely relevant is called crawl stats. And this is going to be pretty telling, again, if there's negative things happening with your website. And the bottom one is probably, in my opinion, one of the most relevant. It's how much time is spent downloading a page in milliseconds. Sometimes, like, let's say if you're using WordPress, maybe you add a new plugin. Or maybe you're using a plugin that's not updated that often. For whatever reason, sometimes some things can go haywire with your website, and that causes the pages to download very slow.
Yeah.
That's a bad thing, especially as Google's pushing forward with a mobile first. Pay attention to this. If Google's having a problem downloading your pages, you'll see the trends. It's a 90-day graph. Definitely take action if you see that spiking up, that it's if it's a long time to download. Now we're going to move up into the search traffic area. Under there, one of my favorite spots is the search analytics. This tells you a lot of great information. And this is one of those areas, like we were talking earlier, where don't trust this with your life. This is kind of 20,000 foot view information. Very important information, but don't get super, super granular on each item here. It's definitely something you want to look at in more of a broad spectrum. So you can do some cool things here, like you can compare date ranges. Let's just say 28 days versus 28 days. So kind of this 4 weeks versus the previous 4 weeks. And there's 4 options up here. There's clicks. So that's how many times. This is just through Google too. I don't think we mentioned that earlier. All of these stats are just through Google, right? So if somebody's visiting your website on Bing, just typing in your website directly, not going through Google search engine to get there, That's not what we're looking at here.
Oh, okay.
This is only when people have gone to Google, searched for something, and then how your site is presented within that on Google's page. So when we say clicks, that's not how many people have visited your website. That's how many people have clicked on your pages in Google search results, right? Same for impressions. How many times has your page been shown, or pages, any individual page, been shown to somebody when they're scrolling through looking at the search results, whether you're on the first page or the third page, doesn't matter. How many times have your impression been shown on a page? CTR stands for click-through rate. How many times were you shown an impression versus how many times did you get a click? And then the last one is position, which is kind of an aggregate, of all your pages in the index for what the average position is. This is usually a lot higher number, meaning a lower position.
Yeah.
Than what your popular pages are going to be. You could have a number of pages dominant in the first, second, or third position, and you may see your position on this report show 13 or 12.2 or 36.9. Don't be alarmed by that. That's kind of an overall stat. But within there, they do show you the individual pages as well. But on that top summary, it can be a little misleading. So
Okay.
An area that hopefully you don't have to get into too much here is this manual actions. And that's without getting too deep into it, that's when you got some corrections to do. Google's identified something very specific that you have to fix on your website. If you ever have anything in this area, get on top of it real quick.
Are these things that penalize you essentially?
Yeah. This is going to be anything that's going to hurt your rankings.
Okay.
It can be multiple things, but anything in here is something that's going to affect pages or even your website, in general, all pages. So anything ever shows up in there, check it out. There's also another area up in the messages where they're going to communicate just any general errors, or things, again, usually things that are going to have a negative consequence.
Right.
Because Google doesn't want to make it tough for you to get indexed. They want to be very clear with you about, what pages are working, what pages are in the index and what pages aren't, and what's preventing them from being in there. Because the more people, the more pages that are submitted to Google, the more content, the more information they have, the more people keep going back there. So they want you to be successful and get your pages into Google. So any messages they're communicating to you, investigate them. Don't blow them off. They're telling you for a reason. That's probably about it. There's a couple other areas. Again, there's a spot for security issues. There's different tools you can do and kind of different things to check your website. Explore all those. Again, if Google's giving you tools on how to optimize your website, how to understand what is and isn't working with your website, and what pages are or are not in their index, use these tools.
Right.
Everything in the left-hand column is going to be versions of that. So explore them all, get intimate, figure out what they do for you. And then you can make your own decisions on, again, is it daily, weekly, monthly? How often are you going to be doing these things? Figure that out for yourself. And something I definitely recommend is set up some kind of a calendar or a checklist for yourself, right? Maybe you're going to jump in here once a month. Make a note to yourself. What do I want to check? What do I want to look at? Google doesn't save this information forever. So if you want to maybe write down some benchmarks for yourself too, to just fall back on later, so you have a reference point, go ahead and do that too. That's not a bad idea at all. So,
and if you have any questions, make sure you drop us a line or shoot us an email, and we'll be more than happy to answer it and try to get you through it.
All right. Thanks everyone. That pretty much does it for this week. So we'll see you next week.
See ya.
We want to talk about something really cool that we're going to be launching. It's going to be a live review of your website. So we've had a lot of people emailing us, kind of asking questions, and we used one of them in an example for last week's podcast from Patrick. And that went pretty good, and we really enjoyed that, and Patrick was happy with the feedback. We want to turn that into something we can do on Facebook Live for everybody. So we're pretty excited about it, and hopefully that gives us the chance to connect with you guys in a live format and review your website. So if you do have some of these questions for how do I do this, or what do you think of that, or what would you recommend, we'd love to answer those live. If you're interested in doing this, let us know. Go to intrix.com/live. There's a real quick form, who you are, what's your website, and kind of tell us, if you're having a problem or what exactly you want us to be looking at. And so, of course, this is going to be on Facebook Live. If you're not already follow us on Facebook, go out to facebook.com/intrix. Follow us, even if you don't want to submit your site to get reviewed. If you want to jump on to the live session and watch what we're doing and get that feedback in a live format for other people's websites, if you're following us, you're going to get alerted when we're live.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll make sure we send out an email and let you know when it's going to be for the first one, so everybody can tune in if you're not following us. But obviously the easiest thing through Facebook, go to facebook.com/intrix, follow us. If you want your site to be reviewed, go to intrix.com/live and sign up. Hey everyone, Jesse at the end of the episode coming at you here. Wanted to read another review that we got. This one we got here is a great 5-star review from 100 Hot. 100 Hot says, I would really like to thank Jesse and Bob here for putting up this show. I really needed this kind of advice and insight from these guys who are 100% the real deal. I've put the tips, tactics, methods, and ideas shared in the local SEO Tactics podcast in action. I'm taking millions of notes while listening to each episode, and already I am noticing improvements in my rankings and SEO efforts. This is the show to listen to if you really want to grow your local biz. Definitely appreciate that. 100 Hot, whatever your real name is. And I love these, those pseudonyms. Reading this just feel weird calling people, 100 Hot, but 100 Hot, we definitely appreciate it. This is what we're hoping for in the show. We're doing this to impact, the local service businesses. Yep. As we've said multiple times, this is the backbone of small business in America. That's what makes the whole engine run, right? So if you're feeling like that, hopefully some other people are out there feeling like that. If you are, go to intrix.com/iTunes. We'd love to hear from it. Yeah. If it's good, bad, or ugly, we don't care what the review is. We've been lucky enough that all the reviews have been great so far. And leave us a review. As long as we keep getting them, we're going to keep reading them. So keep them coming in.
Yeah, that's great.